Welcome back to Snetterton, everybody, for the opening rounds of the 2020 GT Cup Championship. We've got lots of racing still to look forward to, but we've got some new cars on track this weekend. The Smart Track Elite Series Jaguars joined the grid, and we caught up with the man behind the series, Graham Glue, to find out what it's all about.
Yeah, it's a very friendly atmosphere, and last year we tried to do the thing ourselves with our own series, but timing was wrong. We had a few issues with the cars, the software, preparing them. I mean, they are quite a sophisticated car anyway. So Chris Haynes came along and said, "Why don't you join GT Cup?" And I said, "Really?" And I looked at it and I went to the last round and I thought, yeah, this could be really good. And then interestingly, the drivers who we've been talking to and running last year, they said, "Yeah, we like that idea, we want to race against other cars." And Jaguar said, "Yeah, we like that idea, we want to race against the other marques as well." So it was a win-win for everybody. Yeah, we've got 4 cars actually, and there was a couple of drivers that were all set to go, but one thing and another, business commitments, COVID-19, they were unable to make it. So hopefully for Silverstone we'll have 4 cars on the grid. The cars are quite unique really. The Project 8s have been designed and developed by Jaguar for track use. It holds the track record at Nürburgring, at Laguna Seca. It's the fastest 4-door touring car in the world as far as a road car is concerned. So yeah, we've adapted it, and we've still got a few things to sort out, but it's a supercharged 600 brake horsepower. It is all-wheel drive. It's a very sophisticated system, but it works well.
This new team, new car and stuff, we've got so much to work on, and I really want to improve the car with them during the whole season, because from this weekend we can learn a lot and to improve the car for the next round.
So let's have a look at the way the grid lines up for the first race of the day, the sprint race. Michael Igoe sits on pole position, John Dillon's Ferrari alongside. It's the 2 Porsches of Will Goff and Lucky Kira on row number 2, and Warren Gilbert is joined by James Guess on row number 3. Steve Ruston, the reigning champion, lines up in his McLaren on row 4 alongside Craig Wilkins, and it's Simon Orange and Sam Randon on row number 5. Patrick Collins and Callum Jenkins on 6, Andy Roby and Chris Kemp on 7, Del Shelton and Chris Murphy, another former champion, on row 8 ahead of Steve Burt and David Franklin. Ruben Del Sart, who we've just heard from, is the first of the Smart Track Series Elite Jaguars on the grid. He's got the German Emanuel Winker alongside him. And the final row of the grid is Fraser Smart and Alex Stevenson. So beautiful conditions, slightly overcast, but a nice warm ambient temperature, as we had yesterday here at Snetterton, where Michael Igoe was the man to beat. He won both the sprint race and the endurance race at the wheel of his GT3 specification Lamborghini. He's got the GTC spec car, the European Ferrari Challenge 488 specification car of John Dillon, alongside, who also won his group in both of the races yesterday, Group GTC. Red lights on, red lights go out. We're away and racing for the second sprint race of the weekend here at Snetterton. It's a good start from Michael Igoe, who leads the charge up towards Ritchie's for the first time. John Dillon slots through in 2nd place, Will Goff in 3rd place, and James Guess is up into 4th position. Lucky Kira was the man who lost out there. Little puff of dust as Steve Ruston clips the apex beautifully through Ritchie's at the wheel of his McLaren, the championship winner from last year, who sits there just towards the tail end of the top 6. Everybody safely around through the right-hand hairpin at Wilson that starts the 2.968 mile lap on the Snetterton 300 circuit, but the big powerful cars already stretching their legs, and James Guess going side by side with the Marcos of Warren Gilbert there through Palmer. There goes the Jaguars towards the tail end of the field, but already Michael Igoe starting to build the advantage, as we saw in both the sprint and the endurance races yesterday, pulling away. The 2 Team Hard Ginettas, in fact the 3 Team Hard Ginettas, all running line astern in the mid-pack at the moment. The 2 grey and orange cars with the white car sandwiched in between the pair of them, but everybody safely through the first 3 or 4 corners, and they'll then start to stretch their legs onto the Bentley straight for the first time. Up towards the right-hander at Wilson. So important this corner to get a good launch all the way down the Bentley straight, and then from there, of course, you're on the brakes through the left and the right-hand kinks at Brundle and Nelson, and that's where Michael Igoe is already heading. You can see the gap he's built up between John Dillon's Ferrari in 2nd place. Will Goff is still 3rd, and the Marcos Mantis, it might be the oldest car in the field, but it's 4th in the hands of the hugely experienced Warren Gilbert, and that means it will also be leading Group GTB. Towards us are the two Ginettas. James Guest, the blue and white and yellow car, leading Group GTH. He won the pit stop race yesterday, but the car behind him, Craig Wilkins, won the sprint race, and the two of them again look to have the pace just over the champions from last year. Steve Ruston's McLaren sitting just behind these two Ginettas, so this is first, second and third in Group GTH for the GT4 homologated cars in the early stages of this first sprint race of the day. Accelerating their way out of Murray's over the start-finish line. Another lap about to be completed. James Guest leading Group GTH. Craig Wilkins too far behind to do a great deal about it as they come over the start-finish line. You can also see that Steve Ruston is now beginning to close in at the wheel of the championship-winning McLaren from last year. What might he be able to do to upset the apple cart of the pair ahead? Onto the brakes, in towards the right-hand hairpin at Wilson. The car's concertina up through the tight right-hander, then start to accelerate their way up towards the fast left-hander at Palmer. James Guest, Craig Wilkins, Steve Ruston not that far behind at the wheel of the McLaren, but the two Ginettas just look to have gapped by maybe another car length that McLaren that sits behind. And then behind them is one of the Team Hard Ginettas, one of three that run in Group GTA over the course of this weekend. Onto the infield section, James Guest at the moment, just managing to keep the similar car of Craig Wilkins behind. Craig, hugely experienced, former British GT racer, raced in Blancpain in Europe as well. Latterly has been racing in the Porsche Club Championship in the UK, but has now switched over to the GT Cup for the 2020 season, and all weekend has there or there been about at the sharp end of Group GTH. He's going to get the slipstream of James Guest this time as they head out of Williams and down the Bentley straight. Towards us comes the fourth place car of Warren Gilbert. He's coming under pressure now though from Lucky Kira, who was a little bit slow away when the lights went out and just lost a couple of places, but Lucky Kira starting to reel in the Marcos that lies ahead. Now they are in separate groups, Group GTB for the Marcos, Group GTC for the Porsche that sits behind in the hands of Lucky Kira. And you can see just how close they are. Onto the brakes, in towards the left-hander at Murray's. The Group GTC Porsche should have more power in a straight line than the Group GTB Marcos. Can Lucky Kira, though, steal the place away? That would be fourth position on the road. And as they head over the start-finish line, no, it looks as though in a straight line, the Marcos has just about got enough grunt to keep the Porsche behind. Lucky Kira close enough just to show the nose as they head in towards Ritchie's, but no more than that. Can he do anything on the brakes? He's jinking out from behind to try and get the inside line for the right-hander at Wilson. It looks as though he's through yet, so a change for fourth position. Porsche goes ahead of Marcos. That's Lucky Kira ahead of Warren Gilbert. But for Lucky Kira, it still means that he lies second in Group GTC. And for Warren Gilbert, he will still lead Group GTB despite the overtake. Into the straight that brings them in towards the infield section at Agostini. Lucky Kira, as I say, lying second in Group GTC because John Dillon's Ferrari is the leader of that group and is a long, long way up the road in the early stages of this one. They work their way out of the left-hander at Agostini, down the short straight and up towards the very fast left-hand kink at Hamilton. Lucky Kira, since taking fourth position away from Warren Gilbert, is already making good his escape at the wheel of the Porsche. Here's another Porsche, but right behind him is the first of the Smart Track Series Elite Jaguars that we've got in the race. Ruben Del Sart leading that battle at the moment. Emmanuel Vinker is not that far behind by the look of things, though. So Ruben Del Sart, the former Ginetta racer, who shares this Jaguar with his father over the course of this weekend, is going to have to keep pressing on. There you can see the relative gap between the first two Jaguars as Ruben Del Sart flicks his way through the left-hander at Hamilton. Over the start-finish line comes Michael Igo, already twice a race winner this weekend, on course for a third. In the pit stop race later on today, he'll be sharing the car with the pro driver, Dennis Lynn, so you could argue they'll have even more of an advantage than they've currently got. Towards the braking area for Brundle and Nelson, this is the Team Hard Porsche. Onto the brakes, Sam Randon driving, managing to squeeze his way through and past the Aston Martin that sits behind, so that's now been placed further down through the order. Chris Kemp at the wheel of that car. Stuart Hall not able to take part in the sprint race because he's a pro. It's only the amateur drivers that can take part in this sprint race, but Sam Randon pushing on. Aston Martin trying as hard as he can to maintain pace, but of course giving away a fair amount of horsepower and aerodynamics to the Porsche that's just gone through. The lead battle in Group GTH for the moment looks as though it's been settled in favour of Craig Wilkins, who's now up into the lead, and James Guest, who's dropped to second, is coming under pressure from the McLaren that sits behind of Steve Ruston. Also, the fight for second and third is closing up as well. John Dillon, his GTC Ferrari, under pressure from the Group GT3 Porsche of Will Goff that sits behind. They head down the Bentley straight in towards the left-hand kink at Brundle, the slightly tighter right-hand kink at Hamilton. Fight is most certainly on for second and third position. Will Goff would desperately like to try and work his way through and ahead if he can. Has he got enough time in which to do it, however? That's the big question. Flicking their way through the never-ending right-hander at Corham, up towards the conclusion of the lap, the last corner at Murray's, and then from there onto the start-finish line. High ambient temperature today. These drivers will be feeling the heat inside the cars. Not necessarily all of the cars will have air conditioning. Not all of the drivers will wear a cool suit either. And over the course of this sprint race and the pit stop race, the temperature inside the cars is certainly going to have a bearing on performance. And for John Dillon at the moment, he is more than capable of just positioning the car where he needs to keep. Will Goff behind. The Porsche is not close enough to mount a challenge just as yet. As for the battle for second position in Group GTH, well, James Guess is still driving the wheels off the Ginetta. It gives away a bit of straight line speed to the McLaren, but through the twiddly parts, if you harry the Ginetta through, as we've heard from James Guess over the course of this weekend, then you can just about maintain it. There goes the Group GTH leader just through shot, the red Ginetta. This is second and third. You can see in the background as well the Team Hard Ginetta and Andy Roby's yellow BMW not too far away. They will all sit in different groups. For James Guess, he is one of the busiest guys on circuit, as is John Dillon as well in second place, because Will Goff has just inched up a shade more, maybe an extra half a car length, but that's all you need. The Porsche is now in the slipstream of that Ferrari as they head down the Bentley straight. Don't quite think he's going to be close enough by the time they get to the end of the Bentley straight, but he'll have just edged up a shade more. Lamborghini leads, Ferrari second, Porsche third, but are Ferrari and Porsche going to stay in that order? That's the big question, because John Dillon is having a few more questions asked of him by the Porsche of Will Goff that sits directly behind. They feed their way again up towards the conclusion of another lap, and again it just looks as though Will Goff is just slowly closing that amount of daylight that exists between himself in third and the second place Ferrari that sits ahead. Up the start-finish straight. Again, he'll sit in the slipstream, try and edge up ever more onto the coattails of the Ferrari 488 Challenge machine. John Dillon again knows that the Porsche is just too far back to try anything at Ritchie's corner. I think he's going to be too far back to try anything on the brakes also as they head up towards the braking area for Wilson. Now, this is our Group GTH leader. Craig Wilkins won the sprint race yesterday. He's worked terribly hard to take the lead of the group from James Guess a few laps ago and then pull away as well, so it's all going to plan for him. This is the fourth place car, Lucky Kira. We saw him get past Warren Gilbert's Marcus a few laps ago, so Lucky lying fourth overall in the race. That's second in Group GTC, the Marcos behind, and now there's been a shuffle for second in Group GTH. Steve Ruston, the championship winning car and the pairing from last year when he shared this car with John Whitehouse, are now through and ahead of James Guess. So the champions from last year now move up to second in Group GTH. They are closing in and about to lap James Simons at the wheel of the SBR Motorsport Lotus Evora, who stays out of harm's way, allows the quicker cars to work their way through. And now it looks as though James Guess is coming under pressure from another two cars in different groups. So the Group GTA Ginetta of Simon Orange, and then Andy Roby at the wheel of the Gemini Motorsport Group GTB yellow BMW. Down the short straight in towards Palmer. Already Steve Ruston now, he has gained second in the group, is looking to try and pull away. But you can bet your bottom dollar that James Guess will keep pushing, A, because he's got other cars behind him, and B, will not want to lose touch with the McLaren that sits directly ahead, because the cars behind, as I say, are in different groups, so it won't affect the championship point scoring for James Guess, but he will lose touch with the McLaren if they get through. Busy little section of the circuit as well up towards Hamilton. There goes the yellow BMW of Andy Roby. Not the only E46 that we've got in the field this weekend. And back towards the fight for second and third place. John Dillon still having to just watch his mirrors. He's not really having to stick his elbows out as yet to keep the Porsche behind. But any small slip-up or missed braking opportunity from John Dillon, and Will Goff will be there, poised, ready to pounce, to snatch the place away. Out of the Wilson hairpin, up towards Palmer. Still Ferrari second, Porsche third. Here is the Group GTB leading Marcos off Warren Gilbert. They had a tough old day yesterday with several problems with the Marcos, and there is a big engine failure by the look of things for Chris Kemp, who pulls the Group GTH Aston Martin over to the left-hand side of the circuit. We've also got a spin in the middle of the Wilson hairpin. Now that is James Simons that is pointing in the wrong direction. Lucky Kira and Warren Gilbert all having to thread their way through and past the stricken Lotus, which hooks up reverse gear and will continue in the race. But for poor old Chris Kemp, yeah, that's the end of his race. And now, by the look of things, James Guess is back up to second in Group GTH. He's gone through and ahead of the McLaren of Steve Rushton, and that was just, I think, at the end of the yellow flag zone down the Bentley Straight. So fortuitous driving from James Guess there to take the opportunity and squeeze his way through and past Steve Rushton's McLaren. The champion from last year may well just be kicking himself. Up towards the end of the lap, there's still an opportunity for the McLaren to try and get back past the Ginetta. He'll also be conscious that there's other cars queuing up behind the Team Hard number 67 Ginetta of Simon Orange not too far away. Andy Roby's Gemini Motorsport BMW is still not that far away either, but up towards Ritchie's Corner, the McLaren just showing the nose of itself to James Guess in the mirrors, but that won't put James Guess off, who will nice and neatly and tidily turn his way through the right-hander at Ritchie's Corner. Can they do anything on the brakes? No, just too far away, Steve Rushton, so closes the gap up a bit. Andy Roby now is ahead of Simon Orange's Ginetta, so the BMW is the next in the queue after this pair ahead of him. So it's Ginetta, then McLaren, then BMW, then another Ginetta. All busy at the moment, squabbling away for what will be 7th, 8th, 9th, and I think that will be 10th positions. And they've got the race leader beginning to bear down on them as well. So Michael Igoe jinks out from behind Simon Orange's Team Hard Ginetta, squeezes his way through, puts a lap on that one. The next car he will dispatch a lap down will be Andy Roby's BMW, who gets a little bit squirrely midway round through Agostini. But again, the extra power of the GT3 specification Lamborghini Huracan of Michael Igoe is easily able to ease its way past and ahead of the BMW. Blue flags waving for warning the slower cars that the race leader is coming through. Steve Rushton, I think, wasn't quite expecting the Lamborghini to close that quickly, and Michael Igoe, as a result, has got time just to back off the throttle and wait until later around the lap. But now he's got to wait until the green flag zone to get past James Guess, which he's able to do. So that is now safely past all of that traffic for Michael Igoe, who at the moment now has lapped everybody up to and including 7th place James Guess. Andy Roby's car, which has given him a few issues over the course of the 2019 season, but appears to be going very strongly this weekend. Great to see him back on circuit and within the GT Cup entry list this weekend. Michael Igoe flicks his way through Murray's, and again you can see he's pushing the tail end of the Lamborghini. Certainly seemed to oversteer midway through the corner there. Had to correct it with a bit of steering input, but Michael Igoe is still so far up the road from everybody else. He has built a nearly 60-second advantage over this pair, squabbling over 2nd and 3rd positions still. John Dillon and Will Goff are still at it, and at the moment it is still Ferrari in 2nd place and leading Group GTC. Porsche, that runs in Group GT3, is sitting there in 3rd, but they've got traffic just up the road to deal with before too much longer. Here comes James Simons, having had that spin down at the Wilson hairpin. He is now recovering and is looking to try and work his way back into contention. The 2nd and 3rd place cars will work their way through and past, and they've met the traffic just in the right position as far as John Dillon is concerned. Down the start-finish straight, next of the cars they're going to come up against is going to be Callum Jenkins, who is on board the number 34 Team Hard Ginetta, the G55 that runs in Group GTA. John Dillon should get through on the run up towards the Wilson hairpin. Yeah, up the inside of the Ginetta. Will Goff can't quite make it through, so that's just split up the fight for 2nd and 3rd place as they head up towards Palmer, still threading their way through the traffic. Now that's Andy Roby. I'd said it'd been going so well, but it looks as though his car has had a spin. He will rejoin the circuit. That was at Agostini. The fight for 2nd and 3rd, now it's past some of the traffic. Has still got other bits to deal with, including David Franklin's Group GTB Porsche. David is the Group GTB champion from last year. He will stay neatly out of the way and allow both Ferrari and the GT3 Porsche of Will Goff to go through. So all of a sudden we're back to having the fight for 2nd and 3rd absolutely nose to tail as they head up towards a right-hander at Oggies. So through the right-hander up towards then the next of the right-handers, which is Williams. This is what brings you onto the Bentley Straight. Will Goff is as close as he's been so far. He gets a good exit coming off the corner. Is he going to be able to make it through though? Simon Orange is still pushing hard as well at the wheel of his Group GTA Ginetta. Now he's running in 9th position, but he's got that McLaren, Steve Rushton, in Group GTH just ahead of him. So again, it's not for group position, but it is for overall position for 8th and 9th places. And as for 2nd and 3rd, well, still as they were. They've been like this for several laps now, haven't they? But Will Goff has not at all seen the door ajar from John Dillon, so has never really had the opportunity to try and shuffle the order. The battle is on also for top honours in the Smart Track Series Elite Jaguars. Ruben Del Sart coming under pressure from Emmanuel Vink, who this time gets a good run coming out of Nelson, has the inside line for the bomb hole, and the German goes through and ahead of the Dutchman into the lead of the Smart Track Series Elite Jaguar battle that's been raging. They run in Group GTA, but the order has shuffled, and bragging rights at the moment are going the way of Emmanuel Vinker up towards the end of the lap through Murray's. Vinker gets really sideways, gathers it all up, and actually I don't think lost a great deal of time there, largely because Ruben Del Sart saw what was going on ahead of him and probably had to lift off the throttle himself, worried that the Jaguar might come straight across the nose of his car. So Emmanuel Vinker, despite the squirrely moment, is now back in the lead of the Smart Track Series Elite Jaguars, the Project 8 cars, as they work their way round through Ritchie's Corner. A great addition to the GT Cup. Now Michael Igoe is just heading round through the final couple of corners. He's already twice a race winner in the GT Cup as a result of his victories in yesterday's sprint and pit stop race. Well, in today's sprint race, he's going to make it a hat-trick. 3 out of 3, and so far this weekend, it's a clean sweep for Michael Igoe and the WPI Motorsport Lamborghini Huracan. He comes through to claim the victory, and a dominant one at that, over 60 seconds ahead of John Dillon and Will Goff, who are still doing battle for 2nd and 3rd places. It does look as though Emmanuel Vinker has probably just about done enough to keep Ruben Del Sart behind and be the first of the Smart Track Series Elite Jaguars over the start-finish line, but they have had a good little battle. Looking forward to seeing more of those cars over the course of the season. Warren Gilbert and the Top Cats Racing Marcos Mantis have gone beautifully well in this race. He is on for top honours in Group GTB. That's repaying the team for all of the issues they had with that car yesterday, but the battle for 2nd is still not fully resolved. You know, Will Goff might have one more opportunity, either onto the brakes at Murray's or the sprint to the line, but John Dillon has always positioned the Ferrari exactly where he wants it to be. He is going to surely claim top honours in Group GTC, but can he hang on to 2nd overall on the sprint to the line? The Ferrari is just about going to do it. Will Goff edges up alongside, but John Dillon comes through and finishes in 2nd place. Will Goff, despite all of the squabbling he'd been doing with John Dillon, is going to finish in 3rd place. And as for the Smart Track Series Elite Jaguars, well, Ruben Del Sart is throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, at it in the closing stages. Is he going to be able to unpick Emmanuel Vinker and claim the honours for being the first Smart Track Series Elite Jaguar over the start-finish line? Well, they're coming up against James Simon's Lotus on the run towards the flag. You can see just how close Ruben Del Sart was to the rear bumper of Emmanuel Vinker, but he is just going to hang on to it, Emmanuel Vinker. But Ruben Del Sart did not, in the latter stages, make it easy. Unfortunately, just lost the lead of that little Jaguar battle with a couple of laps to go. So the cars over the start-finish line. What a great little fight they had. We look forward to seeing more of that in the pit stop race that will be coming up later on over the course of this weekend here at Snetterton. So still under beautiful clear skies, ideal racing conditions. Let's confirm the results. Michael Igoe claims the win. In 2nd place, winning Group GTC, is John Dillon. Will Goff was 3rd and Lucky Kira was 4th. Warren Gilbert won Group GTB, and Craig Wilkins in 6th won Group GTH. James Guest, Steve Ruston, Simon Orange was in 9th place. He was the Group GTA winner, and completing the top 10 was Del Shelton. Then it's Patrick Collins, Sam Randon, Chris Murphy, David Frankland, Callum Jenkins, Andy Roby, Steve Burt, Emmanuel Vinker confirmed as the first of the Smart Track Series Elite Jaguars home. Ruben Del Sart, and the last of the finishers was Fraser Smart. Retirements, unfortunately, for the Aston Martin of Chris Kemp and also Alex Stevenson. Time to catch up with one of our group winners. Let's have a word with the Group GTB winner, Warren Gilbert.
Yesterday we weren't sure what was going on. We had a diff issue, overheating, then a diff failure, a cooling issue, a drive belt issue. I don't know, it just wasn't playing in our hands, so we sort of stroked it to the end of both races to get the points, and we finished. It was great. I mean, we started pretty much from the pit lane in both races and got 2 finished results. Yeah, today was much better. We got pole position, we got fastest lap in the race, and we won the class and 5th overall. So yeah, I mean, it was a much better start today.
GT Cup has already served up some great racing at Snetterton this weekend, but keep your eye on our social media platforms. Don't go anywhere, because the pit stop race from Sunday is coming up.